My name is Gianna, and I'm here to tell you that being born into a wealthy family isn't always as glamorous as it seems. Despite the financial comfort, my early years were anything but a fairy tale. From the moment I arrived, I seemed to be more of a burden than a joy to my family, particularly to my mother, Madison. I was a restless infant, always crying, rarely sleeping through the night. Madison struggled to cope with my incessant needs. "Can't you just be quiet for 1 minute?" she would often snap, her voice sharp and cutting. My father, Charles, was the polar opposite of my mother. He was the warmth and kindness of our home. Every evening, he would rescue me from my mother's frazzled arms with a gentle smile, calling me his princess and creating a safe haven from the tension. He'd walk me around our large, echoing house, sharing details of his day as if I could grasp every word, his voice always soothing. Dinner times were particularly strained. My younger sister Anna, who arrived 2 years after me, was everything I was not: quiet, serene, and the picture of what my mother desired in a child. She was doted upon and praised, the golden child, while I was often met with comparisons and dissatisfaction. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" my mother would lament. It hurt, but my father was always there to soften the blow, insisting that my spirited nature was not a flaw but a part of who I was. As I grew, the differences in how my parents treated Anna and me became even more pronounced. My father became my ally, teaching me simple tasks like setting the table or folding laundry, which became our shared moments. When I questioned why Mom seemed to favor Anna, my father would sigh, pausing in his chores, and offer explanations that spoke of love's complex expressions. He suggested that some people find it difficult to show their affection openly and that my mother had her struggles. The disparity extended to our birthdays. My celebrations were subdued, marked by simple cakes and quiet gatherings, while Anna's birthdays were extravagant, filled with laughter, presents, and attention. As I matured, this division within our family deepened into a chasm that was hard to ignore. It felt as if we lived in two separate worlds within the same house. My mother's world revolved around Anna, with me merely existing on the periphery. "Gianna, clean up your sister's toys from the living room," my mother would command, preparing to take Anna to her ballet classes, as if it were the most natural expectation. "Why doesn't she clean up after herself?" "She's not a baby," I would protest, the injustice of it all leaving a sour taste in my mouth. My protests, however, often fell on deaf ears, deepening the divide and my sense of isolation within my own home. This imbalance shaped my childhood, crafting a narrative of favoritism and resilience in the face of familial challenges. "Because I ask you to, so just do it and skip the complaints," my mother would command sharply, her words slicing the air with finality. In our household, her rules were absolute, and according to her, Anna could do no wrong. For me, school became my sanctuary, a place where I was known for my own merits, not just as Anna's older sister. I had my circle of friends and my achievements, but the disparity of my home life still cast a long shadow over these small freedoms. Listening to classmates chatter about family trips and outings, which were foreign concepts at my home, stung deeply. According to Mom, such activities were frivolous expenses, even though funds always seemed available for Anna's new dresses or ballet lessons. "You're wearing that to schools?" Anna would sneer, eyeing my worn jeans and faded sweater as she flaunted her new backpack. "What's wrong with it?" I'd retort, feeling a flush of embarrassment. "It just looks old, that's all," she'd reply nonchalantly, her tone dripping with disguised disdain. Despite the tensions at home, Dad remained my steadfast supporter. In the evenings, he'd assist with my homework or we'd engage in small projects around the house. It was during these moments I felt truly appreciated. "Gianna, pass me that screwdriver, please," he'd request as we mended an old dresser.
"Here you go, Dad."
"Why doesn't Mom see me the way you do? Why am I always left out?" I would ask, my voice cracking with frustration and sorrow. Dad would pause, wiping his forehead. "Life's not always fair, kiddo. But you've got to play the cards you're dealt. Keep your head up and do your best." Things will work out, you'll see. His advice was sincere, but it barely eased the sting of witnessing Anna bask in Mom's undivided affection. On the rare occasions Mom did notice me, it was usually to offer criticism or make unfavorable comparisons. "Gianna, why can't you keep your room as tidy as your sister's?" she would criticize during her brief inspections. "Maybe because I actually use my room for more than just sleeping," I'd snap back, my retort a blend of jest and defiance, masking my deeper hurt. "A smart mouth won't get you anywhere. Try to be more like your sister," she'd reply sternly, her expression hardening further. Realizing that expecting anything different from Mom was futile, I shifted my focus toward my future. "Just a couple more years, Gianna. Hang in there," I'd whisper to myself at night, dreaming of the day I could leave and forge my path, one where I wasn't relegated to a supporting role in my own life. As graduation neared, Dad and I held more serious discussions about my future, always out of Mom's and Anna's earshot. "I want you to go to college. I've been setting some money aside for you," Dad revealed one evening while we were doing the dishes. "Really? But Mom said we couldn't afford it because of Anna's college fund," I responded, skepticism laced with frustration in my voice. "We'll figure something out for you. Don't worry about your mother," Dad assured, though concern creased his brow. The thought of college became my lifeline, a beacon of hope for a new beginning. But Mom had other plans, blatantly dismissing my aspirations during one of her blunt declarations. "Gianna should just stay and work. We need to save for Anna," she announced one day, her tone devoid of any room for discussion or debate. "But Mom, I've been dreaming about going to college for as long as I can remember," I protested, my voice a quiet, desperate whisper. "No, I've already made up my mind. You'll stay here, work, and contribute your earnings to the family," Mom retorted sharply, her decree slicing through my hopes like a guillotine. The finality of her words was the catalyst I needed. I couldn't let my dreams be crushed that easily. The day after graduation, I packed my belongings quietly. Before dawn, I scribbled a note for Dad, hoping he'd understand, and slipped out of the house, the early morning air as cold as the resolve in my heart. I moved into a small room above a local cafe, where I began working immediately, grabbing every shift I could get my hands on. In the evenings, I took a second job at a nearby store, stashing away every cent I earned. Dad would drop by occasionally, secretly handing me a little extra cash. "Keep this for your college fund, Gianna. It's not much, but it's a start," he'd whisper, handing me an envelope thick with crumpled bills. Each night, after my shifts, I'd count my savings, laughing to myself. "Look at you, Gianna, like a gremlin hoarding over a treasure," I'd joke to myself, the coins and bills piling up, each one a small victory towards my independence. Years of relentless work, living frugally on canned beans and toast, finally paid off. I saved enough to cover my first year at the local college, where I enrolled to study interior design. That first semester tested every limit. I attended classes by day and returned to the cafe at night. My determination bore fruit when one of my design projects not only won a local competition but also earned me a scholarship that covered my tuition for the rest of my degree. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly living, not just surviving, I mused, as my boss at the cafe held up the local paper announcing my award. "It looks like those long nights at your drafting table really paid off, huh?" Marty, my boss, remarked with a grin. "Yeah, it seems like they did," I agreed, relief washing over me. Quitting my second job felt like a luxury, allowing me to focus all my energy on my studies and my job at the cafe, dedicating myself to what I truly loved. College flew by in a whirlwind of late nights, copious amounts of coffee, and unbridled creativity. I thrived in this environment, surrounded by peers who shared my passion. By the time I graduated, I had secured a position with one of the city's most prestigious interior design firms. It felt surreal, like a dream come true. The job was everything I hoped for, and more. As I immersed myself in my career, spending long hours sketching and bringing visions to life, the constant screen time and stress began to take their toll. Seeking an outlet, I started running in the park next to my apartment each morning. It wasn't anything intense, just enough to clear my head. However, I soon realized my old sneakers weren't up to the task. One quiet morning, I visited a specialized sports store to find better running shoes. The store was almost empty, a few early birds milling about. As I browsed the aisles, a sales consultant approached me. Looking for something specific, or just browsing, he asked, his demeanor casual yet confident. Running shoes. I need something durable, not something that'll fall apart after a week, I replied, trying to sound informed though I was out of my depth. He chuckled. I think I can help with that. What's your mileage like? Pretty amateur. Just trying to maintain my sanity with a morning run, I confessed, feeling a bit embarrassed. No worries, we've all got to start somewhere, he reassured me with a smile, ready to help me find the perfect pair. We've all been there, he said with a reassuring smile, leading me to a display of running shoes that seemed more advanced than anything I'd ever worn. We spent the next half hour discussing the various merits of different brands and the types of support they offered. It was evident that he was well-versed in his field, and surprisingly, I found myself enjoying the conversation far more than I expected. As I paid for the shoes, Dawson leaned over the counter, scribbling on the back of the store's business card. If you ever want more tips on running, or maybe a running partner, here's my number, he said with a casual grin. I laughed, slightly taken aback by his forwardness, but pleased nonetheless. Thanks, Dawson. Maybe I will, I replied, pocketing the card. True to his offer, Dawson was a fountain of running knowledge, and it wasn't long before our casual morning jogs became a regular part of my routine. Gradually, Dawson and I began spending time together outside of our runs. We'd grab coffee, catch a movie, and spend evenings chatting about everything and nothing in my apartment. Before we knew it, he had moved in, and life felt unexpectedly complete. However, when the conversation turned towards making our relationship official, Dawson hesitated. I think we're still too young, Gianna. We need to get to know each other better, he suggested. So, I embraced our situation, my new job, my evolving relationship with Dawson, and my morning runs. Life was unfolding on my terms, and I was determined to savor every moment. The tranquility of our Saturday morning was abruptly interrupted by the shrill ring of the phone. My stomach knotted as I saw the caller ID. It was Mom, who only called when things were dire. Hello, I answered, bracing myself for the bad news. Gianna, it's your dad. He's very sick. You need to come home. Mom's voice was terse, each word laden with urgency. Feeling Dawson's supportive squeeze on my hand, I quickly agreed. We'll leave right away. As we arrived at the grand house I grew up in, Dawson whistled softly. Wow, I didn't realize you grew up in a mansion. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Mom and Anna stood in the foyer, their expressions strained. Gianna, finally, Mom said coldly. Your sister and I are in the middle of something important. Nice to see you too, Mom, I replied dryly, introducing Dawson to their barely polite nods. Without waiting, I led Dawson to where Dad was resting. He looked so frail and pale in bed, and my heart clenched. Dad. I approached tentatively. Gianna, Dad's voice was a hoarse whisper. He motioned for me closer. I need to say something. I'm sorry for everything. I took his hand, tears welling up. It's okay, Dad. We're okay. We joined the others for dinner, but the atmosphere was unbearable. Mom and Anna casually discussed the inheritance as if Dad were already gone, their conversation filled with cold calculations. With the accounts, we should be set for quite a while, Anna remarked, her voice unnervingly light. I exchanged a disbelieving look with Dawson. Excuse me, I interrupted. Can we not do this right now? Dad's still here. Oh, Gianna, don't be so sensitive. We're just being practical, Mom chided dismissively. The meal couldn't end soon enough. Dawson and I excused ourselves, the pretense of civility too much to endure. As we drove away, relishing the silence after such a stifling dinner, Dawson broke the quiet. Gianna, I've been thinking. Marry me, he blurted out earnestly, his gaze intense. I was stunned, emotions swirling within me at his sudden proposal. What now? Yeah, why not? Life is short, we love each other, and we're happy. Let's do it. No big wedding, no fuss, just us. Dawson's simple proposal, coming just after the stark reminder of life's fragility, deeply resonated with me. Yes, Dawson, let's do it, I agreed enthusiastically. We didn't waste any time. The following week, we stood together at City Hall, exchanging vows in a simple ceremony. There were no guests, just an abundance of love and commitment. It felt profoundly right, like the perfect rebellion against my family's entrenched materialism. In the weeks that followed, the surreal mix of new marital bliss and the grim reality of my father's worsening health defined my days. I made frequent visits to see him, enduring the chilly receptions from Mom and Anna. During one visit, Dad's voice, a faint whisper, carried a surprising weight. "Gianna, when I'm gone, there'll be something for you. A sort of surprise," he said, his weary eyes flashing a moment of urgency. I squeezed his hand, choosing to focus on the present. "Let's not talk about that now, Dad. You need to rest," I murmured, hoping it was just the illness talking. Back at the house, Mom and Anna's conversations increasingly revolved around the inevitable aftermath of Dad's passing. "We need to think about the bills and what comes next," Mom declared one afternoon, her voice as cold and calculating as ever. She spent her days disappearing for hours into beauty treatments and consultations, while Anna, freshly graduated and entirely disinterested in employment, filled her evenings with social gatherings and her days with indolent sleep, oblivious to anything beyond her immediate gratification. The dreaded call came on a rainy Thursday morning. Mom's voice was emotionless as she delivered the news. "Your father passed away last night. We're arranging the funeral for this weekend." The news hit like a punch to the gut. I felt Dawson's arms wrap around me, his presence a small comfort against the vast emptiness swelling inside me. The funeral passed in a blur. People came and went, offering condolences and speaking of my father's kindness and integrity, traits starkly absent in my mother and sister. As the formalities wound down and we gathered in the living room, Dawson unexpectedly broached the subject of the inheritance. "So, what's going to happen with the inheritance? I just want to know what my wife will get." "It's not the time, Dawson," I hissed, my eyes pleading with him to drop the subject. But it was too late. The topic was out in the open, and Mom and Anna eagerly began outlining their plans for the assets, speaking as though Dad's will was already crafted to their benefit. "And the house," Dawson interjected, shifting the focus. "It should go to Gianna. It's only fair." Mom laughed, a harsh, jarring sound. "This house is for Anna and me. You two have no claim here," she declared, her gaze icy. Dawson's demeanor then changed. He turned to Anna with a sweetness that chilled me. "You know, Anna, you've really grown into quite the woman." "I always thought so." I stood frozen as the room descended into chaos, Mom and Anna flattered by Dawson's sudden attentions, oblivious to the deeper implications. I couldn't bear it anymore. With my heart breaking, I walked away, retreating to my father's room, seeking solace in the quiet and memories of a man who had tried to make things right. When I woke the next morning, still in my father's room, I resolved not to let the oppressive atmosphere of the house suffocate me. I headed to the kitchen, determined to keep my composure and face whatever came next with a newfound resilience. As I reached for the coffee that morning, Dawson appeared, blocking the refrigerator with a somber look on his face. "Gianna, we need to talk," he said, his voice sending a shiver down my spine. "What is it now, Dawson?" I braced myself for what I feared would be more bad news. Taking a deep breath, Dawson's next words floored me. "I want a divorce, Gianna. I've fallen for Anna. I'm going to marry your sister," he blurted out, avoiding my gaze. He handed me a stack of papers, divorce papers, already filled out. I stood frozen, the papers trembling in my hands. "This has to be some sick joke," I said, but the serious expression on his face told me it was all too real. I stormed out of the kitchen, calling for Anna and Mom. They walked into the living room, their faces painted with faux innocence. "I wanted to tell you, Gianna. I didn't want to go behind your back. That's why Dawson and I are being upfront now," Anna explained first. Mom nodded, adding, "It's very noble of them." I'm proud of Anna for handling this so maturely. The room spun around me as their words echoed, ball rising in my throat. Noble? Mature? You're talking about betrayal. I spat out, my words dripping with disbelief and hurt. At that moment, I knew what I had to do. I grabbed the divorce papers from the coffee table, signed them with a shaky hand, and threw them back at Dawson. You'll get your things by courier, I declared, my voice cold and detached. 3 weeks later, the day to read Dad's will had arrived. We gathered in the notary's office, the air thick with tension. The civility of my family couldn't mask their greed. Their eyes were hungry and calculating. The notary cleared his throat and began reading the will. To my daughter Gianna, I leave all my monetary assets, totaling $800,000. The room erupted. Mom's face twisted in rage as she screamed about her debts and the loans she had taken, expecting to pay them back with the inheritance. Anna shrieked at her, accusing her of being old and useless, claiming she needed the money for her lavish wedding with Dawson. Then, as if on cue, they all turned to me, their faces a grotesque mix of anger and desperation. You have to give us that money, Gianna. It's only fair. Mom yelled, tears streaming down her face, tears she hadn't shed at Dad's funeral. Dawson saw his chance and stepped toward me, arms outstretched, a rehearsed line of regret on his lips. Gianna, I've missed you. I only ever loved you. I recoiled as Anna grabbed him, pulling him back. You're mine now, she hissed, her nails digging into his shirt. The notary, disgusted, threatened to call the police if they didn't calm down. This is a legal proceeding, not a circus. Behave accordingly or leave. Before I walked out, they hurled curses at me, saying I would never be happy with the money. I looked them in the eyes, a sad smile on my lips. Happiness isn't something you buy or steal, it's something you build. And I'll build mine away from all of you, I said, my voice steady. With the inheritance from my father, I did something I had dreamed of for years. I started my own interior design company. Naming it was easy. I called it Charles's Designs, a nod to the man whose quiet strength had always inspired me. The business started small, just me and a rented space in a bustling part of the city, but word of mouth spread fast. My passion and skills poured into every project, ensuring that before long, Charles's Designs was a name associated with quality and integrity in the community. As my interior design business began to flourish, I found myself hiring staff, scouting larger office spaces, and sketching out expansion plans. Despite the successes, not every day was easy. One afternoon, while poring over fabric samples, an unexpected knock at my door caught me off guard. Peering through the peephole, I saw Dawson standing there, holding a huge bouquet of flowers, accompanied by that all-too-familiar smirk. I cracked the door just enough to talk without inviting him in. What do you want, Dawson? I asked, my tone cool. Gianna, baby, I made a huge mistake. I miss you. I know I messed up, but I know you, I know us. We were good together, he said, his voice soft, pushing the bouquet closer. I glanced at the flowers, then back at his face. We were good until you decided my sister was better, right? My voice was calm, but laced with ice. Look, that was a mistake. I was confused, but I'm here now for you, he pleaded, his eyes searching mine for a flicker of forgiveness. But there was nothing left to rekindle. Dawson, listen carefully. I wish you all the best, really, but there's no us. Not now, not ever again, I stated firmly. He opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off by stepping back and slamming the door in his face. Through the wood, I could hear his muffled protests, but they faded into the background as I returned to my work. Later, I heard through mutual friends that Mom and Anna had been forced to sell the house to settle their debts. They'd moved to a small, cramped apartment far from the luxurious life they had always prioritized over family. As for my business, it continued to grow, and with each successful project, I felt more vindicated in my decision to stand alone. The freedom of being my boss and building something from nothing gave me a sense of purpose and pride I'd never known before. The future was a canvas, and I was ready to paint it with broad, bold strokes. Each success was a testament to my resilience and the satisfaction of forging my path, free from the shadows of the past.
Hello everyone, I'm Betty, a 28-year-old woman. I'm here to share my story about how my husband and in-laws got what they deserved. This happened a few months back, and the entire fiasco just died down recently. I'm still reeling from the emotional trauma, and I thought sharing my story might help. 2 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I married my then-boyfriend, Logan. We met through mutual friends and had been together for 3 years. Logan seemed like a fun, caring person who loved me to bits. He came from a wealthy family and had a high-paying job. We immediately clicked due to our shared love of traveling and soon started seriously dating. All my friends thought he was a great guy and were genuinely happy for us. The relationship itself was smooth. Logan was extremely caring and often gave me gifts to cheer me up on bad days. He even bought me a new laptop when I graduated college. We often planned trips, and he insisted on paying for most of our expenses. Initially, I was uncomfortable with Logan paying for everything. "Logan," I said one day, "you know I'm just a college student. I don't have much money to gift you good things. At least let us split the other expenses." "There's no need to split everything, Betty," Logan replied, smiling. "You know I love you, and I like to splurge on my girlfriend. Most of my friends pay for their girlfriends, so it's not a big deal. You need to loosen up a bit," he reassured me. Although Logan paid for a lot of our dates, I was still mindful of getting him gifts and taking him out. They weren't as fancy as his gifts, but they were all I could afford back then. When I graduated and landed a good job with great pay, I was excited to finally pamper Logan with gifts and fancy dates. We even began splitting expenses evenly and started considering moving in together. "You can just move in with me, you know," Logan suggested one evening. "I have a house that was my inheritance from Grandpa. You won't even have to pay rent since it's already fully paid for," he observed. "If you insist, that's fine," I replied. "But for everything else, we will split the expenses evenly. I don't earn as much as you, but it would be unfair if you paid more," I added. "You really don't have to, Betty," Logan said reassuringly. "I want to take care of you, but if you feel like splitting everything, I don't mind that much," he concluded. Everything was going well until I met his family. They live in a different state, far away, and Logan was stuck here because of work. Before meeting them, Logan warned me that they could be a little judgmental. When I asked him what he meant, he didn't give a straight answer, just telling me to play along and ignore them if they said anything mean. While I wasn't thrilled with this disclaimer, I tried to keep a positive mind. However, that positivity vanished when I finally met them. His parents, Alexis and Nathan, along with his sister Thora, flew in to meet us. Logan went to pick them up from the airport, and they arrived looking annoyed. As we sat down to chat, I soon realized they didn't like me at all. "So, you're the woman Logan has been seeing," Alexis said coldly. "I definitely didn't expect to see you in this house. Do you even pay rent?" she asked. "No, Alexis, I don't pay rent here," I explained, trying to stay calm. "Logan told me the house is already fully paid for, so I didn't need to pay rent. But we split all the bills evenly," I replied. "Just because the house is paid for doesn't mean you can mooch off of him," Alexis snapped. "This is his house, not yours. I hope you understand that and remember it for the rest of your life," my future mother-in-law angrily remarked. I immediately felt uncomfortable. Thora didn't even try to talk to me, glaring at me the entire time. When I asked her about her life, she irritably mentioned being married to a rich billionaire back home. I tried to include her in our conversation, but she just waved us off. Throughout all this, Logan did nothing to help me. He just laughed along with his parents and went along with their criticisms. Nathan and Alexis criticized me a lot during their stay. They thought I spent too much money on makeup and skincare and said I shouldn't buy nice things when I wasn't contributing enough to the household. They assumed my expenses were coming out of Logan's pocket. I tried to reassure them, but they didn't seem to believe me. It didn't help that Logan constantly said things against me, even when they weren't true. You know, Betty was a struggling student when we met, Logan remarked one evening casually. I had to pay for everything. She has a job now, but it's not enough to fund her luxury lifestyle, he concluded. Logan, we split our bills, remember? I said, confused and hurt. I buy my own stuff. I'm confused. Why are you saying these things? I lived a simple life before, and even after we started our relationship. I don't have any interest in luxury goods or brands. The only luxury products I have were gifts from you, I explained. Looking back, I realized that Logan gave those gifts just to boast to others about how much he spent on me. When his family left, I already had a bad taste in my mouth. I asked Logan about what happened, but he just shrugged it off, saying, You're thinking too much, Betty. You should take their words lightly. They meant well. What they said was disrespectful, Logan, I argued. I already feel bad for taking gifts from you in college. I'm trying to put in the same effort now. Relax. You're overreacting, Logan dismissed. They don't know everything, so let it be. 6 months later, Logan proposed to me. I was overjoyed because I genuinely loved him with all my heart. We planned an engagement party, which we split evenly. I had started a small business on the side that prospered within a year, but Logan never asked how much I made, assuming it was just a small hobby. However, I decided it was time to treat myself, so I planned a big engagement party. Logan was fine with it, and we split all the expenses equally. I even paid for my extended family's plane tickets so they could attend. On the day of the engagement party, Alexis and Nathan criticized me again. You know, Betty, you shouldn't have splurged so much on this party, Alexis said, her tone dripping with disapproval. You're already draining Logan's account before you're even married. At this rate, you'll be out of money and have to settle for a backyard wedding. I thought you were financially irresponsible, but it's worse than I thought, she uttered wryly. Yeah, I told her the party was over the top, Logan chimed in. It was unnecessary to have your family fly in from other states. I can't believe how much this party cost. I can already feel my wallet getting lighter, Logan sarcastically added, supporting his mother. What are you talking about? We mutually agreed on this party, I said, feeling betrayed. I paid for my share as well. It was your idea to include everyone so that we could meet them as a couple. I was perplexed by my fiancé's reaction. You know, Betty, you insisted so much I couldn't say no, Logan said, shrugging. I usually don't mind spending, but this party cost us a lot. So you've already started manipulating my boy into spending money, Alexis accused me, her eyes narrowing. Logan is so sweet, he just can't say no to you. You should have resisted harder. I can see I was right about what kind of girl you are, she continued. That's very disrespectful, Alexis, I replied, my voice trembling with anger. I didn't extort money from your son. Having a big party was actually his idea first. We had countless discussions before putting down the money, I retorted. I was so shocked by Logan's behavior that I excused myself and went outside to take a breather. I found Thora and her husband, August, laughing about me on the lawn. They didn't even stop when they noticed me. I felt that my engagement party was ruined. Logan was having a blast while I dealt with his family's judgments. Most of his extended family didn't even know that I worked. They thought I was a jobless fiancé dependent on Logan. My mom noticed how sad I was and came over. She's extremely protective of me, having raised me as a single parent, and knows how hard it is to manage finances. Another thing about my mom is that she doesn't tolerate disrespect, especially when it's directed towards her child. Betty, she said, her voice firm, I think you should really rethink the engagement. I've been hearing your in-laws' mean comments the entire party. You can't let them hurt you like that. I don't know why they are doing this. Even Logan is going along with their horrible notions about you. You need to sit down and have a serious conversation with him, she counseled. After the party was over, I brought up my concerns with Logan. He laughed it off, saying, Come on, I was just joking around. You know I love you. I don't care if you break the bank. "I've got us covered," he joked back. "But Logan," I replied, "I'm paying for everything else except rent. I want to contribute to that too." I insisted. He waved me off, dismissing the idea again. Wedding planning was equally stressful. His parents constantly criticized my choices, saying, "Betty, you're spending way too much money. You need to stop bankrupting my son. He is not your cash cow," they condemned. "That's a horrible thing to say, Alexis," I retorted, my patience thinning. "We are both paying for the wedding along with my mom. You aren't contributing anything," I added. Alexis's husband, Nathan, chimed in. "So robbing my son wasn't enough for you? Did you expect us to empty our bank account for you as well?" he questioned. "I'm not asking for money, Nathan," I said firmly. "I'm just telling you that we can pay for this wedding just fine," I continued. On the day of the wedding, Logan's sister Thora kept commenting on how I overspent on my dress and makeup. "You really went all out, didn't you?" she sneered. "My mom paid for these things," I replied, but she didn't seem to care. The ceremony went well, but during the reception, Alexis and Nathan wouldn't stop talking about how I spent too much money and drained their son dry. I didn't want them to spoil my wedding like they did the engagement party, so I kept quiet. Things were suspiciously calm after the wedding, but that would soon change. A few months later, Logan received a big promotion at work. He was thrilled and wanted to celebrate with family. "We should throw a big dinner party," he suggested, his eyes shining with excitement. I was happy for him and agreed. "I want this dinner to be extra special, Logan. I'm so proud of you. I've decided that I'll pay for the whole thing," I said. "Seriously?" he asked, surprised. "But where will you get that kind of money?" "Don't worry," I assured him. "My business is doing well, and I have my salary. Plus, I finally gained access to a trust fund from my paternal grandfather." Logan beamed, clearly pleased with my decision. I planned the entire event so he wouldn't have to lift a finger. I booked a large venue, hired the best caterers, and ensured everything was perfect. Everyone was impressed. Everyone except his family. When they arrived, they looked around disapprovingly. I couldn't understand what was wrong, as the other guests had praised the arrangements. Then it became clear. During the speeches, Alexis stood up and with a smirk addressed the crowd. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my son," she began. "As you all know, he's an incredibly hardworking man and very generous. He deserves this promotion completely. However, his luck ended there. It's sad that out of all people, he was shackled down by a gold digger. I wish he had the foresight to see what his wife is. Then he wouldn't have to work so hard to fund her luxurious lifestyle. It's obvious now to everyone that she's a big spender. From the engagement party to this dinner, she's pretty much emptied his accounts. I feel sorry for my poor boy. I'm just glad he made Betty sign the prenup before the wedding. At least some of his assets are safe," she concluded. Logan laughed and joined in. "Seriously, the way my wife spends, you'd think we'd be on the streets by now. Thankfully, I earn enough to keep a trophy wife. It's a shame I can't spend money on myself since there's none left for me," my husband stated. Logan's sister Thora added, "You really messed up by marrying her. August would never have accepted a gold digger like that. I take good care of my finances because I don't want my husband to be homeless. But some people don't care as long as they can buy expensive things," she rebuked. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What are you saying? Do you really think I'm a gold digger?" Perplexed, I asked my husband. Logan looked at me and said, "I mean, it must be clear to everyone by now. You know your lifestyle is damaging to my bank account," he responded. Another one of Logan's relatives chimed in. "I'd have divorced her sooner. You're one patient husband, but watch out. You'll end up on the streets." That was the last straw. I stood up, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "That's enough. Logan, why are you saying these things? You don't pay for my lifestyle, I do. I paid for this entire party myself. You don't even give me gifts anymore," I angrily exclaimed. "Oh my God, bro," someone else laughed. "This one's not just a gold digger, she's a liar too." Everyone laughed, but I had enough. Since I'm such a gold digger, let me show you my bank balance. That should clear things up, I retorted and pulled out my phone and displayed my bank account to everyone. Alexis's face twisted in disbelief. No way. You have to be lying. Did you steal my son's money? Logan, just look at this. She must have stolen from you, my mother-in-law declared in disbelief. I shook my head, my voice calm. I don't need to steal from your son. This is all from my hard work, and I recently got access to my trust fund, left to me by my grandfather. I was going to surprise Logan with a bigger house, but I guess that's not happening anymore. Logan looked at me, his tone shifting. What do you mean? We can still buy the house. It'll be a lovely gift, he said enthusiastically. I met his eyes, no longer wavering. After watching you join your family and calling me names, that's not happening. Your family has insulted me for too long, and you never once stood up for me. Instead, you made up lies about how I'm using your money, I accused him. Betty, you're overreacting, he tried to say, but I cut him off. No, I'm not overreacting. Everyone here knows what your family has been calling me. They were there when you let them insult me during our engagement party. I will no longer tolerate this disrespect. I want a divorce, I answered firmly. No, Betty, please listen to me, Logan began, but my mom stepped in, her voice firm and protective. Logan, I suggest you keep your mouth shut. You never defended my girl all these years. You were even cruel enough to join in with your family. Anything you say now is laughable. It's time she ends this toxic relationship for good, she concluded. With that, we left the party. The guests were stunned, whispering amongst themselves, but I didn't care anymore. All those years of crying because of their insults had worn me down. I couldn't live with him any longer. I deserved someone who respected me. Mom and I went straight to the house and collected my belongings. Logan kept calling, trying to talk to me, but I muted my phone and pressed on. I moved in with my mother, and when we got home, I finally broke down in tears. Despite all the love I gave, my marriage had ended, but I wasn't going to look back. The next day, I got in touch with my cousin, who is a lawyer. He was at the party, so he already saw it coming. I asked him to draw up divorce papers. Since we have a prenuptial agreement, the split would be easy. I won't even have to give Logan any money, even though I have a lot more than him now. Logan kept trying to contact me throughout the day. He and his family even showed up at my mom's place. Logan pleaded with her. I need to talk to Betty. She can't leave me like this. Let me talk to her. My mom, standing firm, responded, You need to get off my property, Logan. She doesn't want to talk to you, let alone see your face. Logan, desperate, said, She has to talk to me. We won't leave until she comes out to talk. This is not over. But my mom didn't budge. Logan, go back. We are not having this discussion. I am not giving you a chance. You and your family can eat rocks. Now get lost before we call the police, she threatened. Logan eventually went home, but he kept sending texts and voicemails. His messages ranged from sobbing to screaming and even threatening me with harm. One of his voicemails said, Betty, please don't do this to me. You know how much I love you. Please come back. I didn't mean to insult you. Forgive me. But then his tone changed in another message. Betty, stop being stupid. I'm tired of your nonsense. If you get the divorce, I will take everything from you. Just wait and see. I stored all the recordings just in case I needed a restraining order. I was a mess, but my mom helped me a lot. Logan even tried to show up at my office as a last-ditch effort. Fortunately, I had informed security beforehand, so he was dragged out immediately. It was then that I decided I would quit my job. Although it paid well, my business was booming, and I didn't need the job anymore. I wasn't interested in becoming a millionaire. I simply wanted to have a peaceful life with dignity, so I served my notice that day. A week later, Logan was served the divorce papers at his work. He showed up at my workplace again, but was told I had already quit. An ex-colleague of mine informed me about it. However, Logan didn't stop there. He kept sending flowers and gifts to my mum's address. We returned all those parcels. After another week, the harassment was so severe that I considered relocating. I was going to buy a house anyway, so with the help of my mother, I found a good house in the next state. It was just perfect for me. I could live there away from my ex, and my mother could easily visit me whenever she wanted. I'm currently waiting for all my paperwork to be finalized. Since the prenuptial agreement was solid, the judge granted the divorce fairly easily. We did go through 6 months of separation before the judge made the decision, which gave me the time I needed to get my stuff together. As soon as the divorce was finalized, I moved to my new home. I got a new number because Logan and his family were spamming my old one. From what I've heard, Logan is a mess and is blaming his parents for ruining his marriage. His professional life also took a hit. His colleagues don't talk to him anymore, and his seniors are pissed about the bad publicity. It's a small community, so word travels fast. His parents are spreading rumors about me cheating on him, but thankfully, no one believes those lies. They've been telling people that I was a bad person. If things escalate, I might consider suing for defamation. However, their words have only made them look bad in the community. I, on the other hand, am doing extremely well. I'm spending time bettering my business and finally getting to enjoy my life. I've even started going out and have been on a few dates. Logan did leave me with a lot of insecurities, so I'm careful about getting committed too fast. However, I am hopeful that I will heal in the future and finally find someone who will cherish me. You know what? My daughter and I were planning a trip to Hawaii, and I was wondering if you'd like to join us, Brooklyn, my mother-in-law asked. That's great. Let's have a fun trip together, the three of us, I replied enthusiastically. Later, my mother-in-law and daughter-in-law casually started discussing their vacation trip. My anger reached its peak. You must be kidding me, I thought. Planning a trip to Hawaii? If they have money to go to Hawaii, they should pay off their debt as soon as possible. My name is Brooklyn. I'm a 28-year-old office worker. I got married to my husband, Clifford, 3 years ago. Married life with my caring and considerate husband has been very enjoyable, and 3 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Brooklyn, welcome back. Today we're having fried chicken, and the beer is in the fridge, Clifford said with a smile. Yay, I cheered. Clifford took the initiative in doing the housework because we both work, and I think he's really a good husband. I was sure that we would continue to have happy days together, but the situation started to change when Clifford asked me for advice. I'm thinking of sending some money home to my mom, he said hesitantly. Why? Your mother has your sister, and besides, there is also the inheritance money, I replied, confused. Your father just passed away recently, but he held a high position at a big company, so I'm sure he had a lot of money from his retirement. And I'm sure there was a substantial inheritance. Your sister is still single and works for a major company. I don't think they have a hard time making ends meet, I continued. Actually, she's in a lot of debt, Clifford revealed. What do you mean? I asked, concerned. She co-signed for a good friend of hers. She doesn't want my sister, who lives with her, to worry, so she doesn't tell her about the debt. So we're the only ones she can rely on, my husband reasoned. But what about the inheritance? Your father's inheritance? I pressed. She used it to pay for the hospital bills, medical bills, funeral expenses, and to pay off her debts. But it wasn't enough, Clifford explained. She owes that much money? I asked, incredulous. I think that's why she's so anxious every day, he sighed. We don't have that much money either. We both work for small companies, I pointed out. I know, but we can try to save money, Clifford suggested. Baffled by the whole situation, I realized that unexpected difficulties had come to my happy marriage all of a sudden. I was so distressed. I didn't want my life to suddenly become difficult, but my mother-in-law had always been very kind to me. Because she's a good-natured person with a very good character, I guess that's why she trusted her friend and became a co-signer. My mother-in-law took good care of me after we got married, and I felt bad abandoning her in this situation. After much consideration, I decided to send money to her. Since then, I started to save money every day. I was careful about spending on food and refrained from my hobbies. On weekends, I used to go on day trips with Clifford, but we don't do that anymore. I also stopped going out with friends. I used to love having drinks, but now I don't even attend those events. The people at work were worried about what was going on with me, but I couldn't say it was because of a family debt, so I told them that I had a liver problem and was told by my doctor to cut back on drinking. We were supposed to send her $2,000 a month. Clifford and I would each contribute $1,000 from our salaries. On top of that, we had to pay rent, utilities, and other expenses, so it was really hard. The situation was getting more and more stressful. Then one day, I clashed with Clifford. "I'm home," he announced as he walked in. "Huh? Welcome home," I responded. "What's with your hair? Did you go to the hairdresser by any chance?" he inquired. "Yeah, I hadn't been for a while," I admitted. "What? Are you kidding? I told you to save your money. Nobody gives a damn about your hair, and you're married. Don't try to feel sexy in some weird way," Clifford snapped. "How dare you say things like that? It's part of social etiquette to be well-groomed as a member of society, and I'm not trying to be sexy. Don't talk to me as if no one sees me as a woman," I shot back, feeling hurt. "Oh, you're married, but you want to be seen as a woman. Are you having an affair?" Clifford accused. "What are you talking about? Don't make accusations like that," I exclaimed, shocked. "This is suspicious. You're actually making more money, but you're lying and using the extra money to have fun with other guys," he continued. "That's horrible to say. I work so hard to save money," I cried, feeling the sting of his words. I pulled the pay stub out of the drawer and showed it to him. "You see? I took out the money to send to your mom from this paycheck and managed to pay for the hair salon on top of that. I don't deserve to have you accuse me of something you don't understand," I uttered indignantly. "Oh, I understand. I'm sorry," Clifford mumbled, looking guilty. I pleaded my case tearfully, and Clifford seemed to trust me again. But it was the first time we'd ever clashed like this, and it really took me by surprise. We had never fought at all, and I realized that our bond as a couple was so fragile that we could have broken up after just one fight. The main reason for this was the pressure on our finances from the money we were sending. So I came to a decision. I would go directly to my mother-in-law and speak to her about reducing the amount of money we sent to her. If I told Clifford in advance, I'm sure he would object and say he couldn't do such a thing. So I decided not to tell him and to talk to her alone. If this turned out badly, my mother-in-law might hate me, and Clifford might lose trust in me for acting on my own. But in order to protect our life as a married couple, I had no choice but to act. If my mother-in-law understood, I was sure Clifford would too. I called my mother-in-law in advance and went to her house after work. "Brooklyn, it's been a while. Come in," she greeted me warmly. "I'm sorry to bother you," I said as I entered. "Brooklyn, how have you been?" my mother-in-law asked. "It's been a while, Gabriella," I replied. "Well, I'm doing quite okay. I heard you were coming over today, so I went to the department store and bought a cake," she said cheerfully. "What?" I blurted out, surprised. "I'll make some tea, so let's eat," she continued, oblivious to my shock. I thought, "You're the one who is receiving money from us, and you bought a cake from a department store? We don't even get to buy cakes usually." Gabriella, oblivious to my feelings, was in a happy mood while making tea. Seeing my mother-in-law like that made me angry. Then she put the cake in front of me and said something outrageous. "My daughter and I were planning a trip to Hawaii just now." "Oh yeah. Brooklyn, would you like to join us?" I was taken aback. "That sounds great. Let's have a fun trip with just the three of us." "Clifford will have to house sit," I replied, trying to keep my composure. My sister-in-law chimed in. "No problem, he doesn't like hot weather anyway." As they started talking more about their overseas trip, my anger reached its peak. You must be kidding me, Gabriella. Planning a trip to Hawaii? I stated. What's wrong? My mother-in-law asked, noticing my tension. What do you think Clifford and I put up with every day? I continued to voice my outrage, unable to hold back. Putting up with what on earth are you talking about? Gabriella questioned, clearly confused. If you have money to go to Hawaii, please pay off your debt as soon as possible, I demanded. Which debt? My sister-in-law asked, now equally puzzled. I go through a hard time every day to send you the money, I explained, my voice trembling with emotion. Sent me the money? My mother-in-law echoed, disbelief evident in her tone. Yes, the other day I went to the hairdresser for the first time in a while with the little money I had left over. Because of that, Clifford and I got into a fight, I admitted, tears starting to well up. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law exchanged confused looks. I don't understand what you're talking about, my sister-in-law finally said. What do you mean by that? My mother-in-law asked, her confusion deepening. Clifford told me that you owe a lot of money and said that we should send you money, so we each pay $1,000 out of our monthly salary, I revealed. My mother-in-law suddenly raised her voice. What's that? I didn't hear anything about that, she exclaimed. I was stunned. What? I whispered. I mean, I don't have any debt, Gabriella insisted. If I did, there's no way I could go to Hawaii, she added. Well then, I trailed off, suddenly realizing something was very wrong. Both my sister-in-law and mother-in-law seemed to figure it out at the same time, and they had a scary look on their faces. What the hell is he doing? My mother-in-law muttered, anger building in her voice. I was about to call my husband right then, but my sister-in-law stopped me. I need to find out why he lied to you to get you to pay, she said, her voice firm. Why don't you stop sending money for the time being? She continued. Okay, I'll do that, I agreed, still in shock. I followed my sister-in-law's plan. The next time my husband asked, why don't you send the money? My mom is in trouble, I responded calmly. I don't have any money on hand, so I'll go and give it to your mother in person later. He started to panic. No, that's okay. I'll go give it to her, he stammered, and didn't ask me any more about it. My sister-in-law suggested that I also request a professional investigation. When the results came back, they were worse than I could have imagined. My husband had been having an affair for about a year, even during the time my father-in-law passed away. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law were furious when they found out. We called my husband to my mother-in-law's house. He walked in, confused. Hey, why is Brooklyn here too? You said it has something to do with me today, Mom, he questioned incredulously. I asked her to be here because it concerns her too, my mother-in-law responded coldly. What are you doing cheating on Brooklyn and giving her trouble? She asked Clifford firmly. There's no point in playing dumb anymore, I said, placing the photographic evidence on the table. His face turned pale. He started stuttering. It looks like you lied that I have a debt and took money from Brooklyn. You used that money to pay off your lover, didn't you? My sister-in-law accused, her voice filled with disgust. No, that's not true, he stammered, trying to deny it. And you got mad when I went to the hair salon while you were having fun with another woman? That's disgusting, I added, my voice shaking with anger. I'm sorry, it was just the flesh of the devil, he tried to excuse himself. Don't think you can get away with that when you had an affair for a year. I'll make sure you pay back every penny I gave you, and I will demand a divorce as well as alimony, I declared, not giving him any room to wiggle out. Oh no, he whimpered, realizing the gravity of the situation. It's only natural that you pay for your sins, and you're no longer my son. We're cutting you off. Don't you ever show your face again, my mother-in-law said, her voice laced with finality. We were so furious and angry that my husband ran away in fear. After that, my sister-in-law introduced me to a very good lawyer, and we were able to get a divorce smoothly. My ex-husband and his affair partner each paid me a considerable amount of alimony. Of course, the money I sent home was also added to the alimony. My ex-husband was left penniless at once. At his company, he was given a pay cut because of this incident and was transferred to another department. I heard that his lover dumped him, as she wasn't interested in a man with no money. He really deserves it. I, on the other hand, got paid what he owed me, which made things a whole lot easier financially. I've been able to save a tremendous amount of money every month lately, probably because I'd gotten into the habit of saving. I still keep in touch with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and we're planning a trip to Hawaii once again. He was such a lousy husband, cheating his family and me to get money for his infidelity. I think he deserves even worse. By the way, his mom and sister are so cool. I wonder why he became such a scumbag when he has such a cool mother and sister. At any rate, I'm glad I was able to get the money back. I hope you enjoy your trip to Hawaii. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to our channel if you like. See you next time.